Chapter 8 details for us the other projects and accomplishments of King Solomon during his reign. He built the temple, which of course we are very familiar with by now. He also built his own palace. He rebuilt villages that had fallen into disrepair. He built up store cities to collect the abundance of his resources. He built up military cities with fortified walls and with gates and bars. He also built cities for fast connections with one another. These were the ones that contained the chariots and the horses, and it's summarized at the end of verse 6 by saying, he built whatever he desired to build in Jerusalem, in Lebanon, and throughout all the territories he ruled. There is just one surprising sentence in the opening paragraph, and that is found in verse 3. Solomon then went to Hamath Zobar and captured it. Why is that surprising? Well, because Solomon's reign was characterized by being a time of near perfect peace. You'll remember that David devoted himself to war so that his son Solomon could live in an era of peace. And for the most part, that is exactly what happened. Solomon, the name even, has connections with the Hebrew word shalom. His name means peaceful. But in this one instance, we read, he himself made war. I would love to know more about the circumstances of why exactly that was. Perhaps the people of Hamath Zobar made an attack against him. Maybe they saw all the wealth and prosperity of Israel, and in their arrogance they lined up for battle against him, and he simply went to destroy them. Or maybe they were living in the territory of Israel, but were not worshipping the God of Israel, and therefore he had every right to go and drive them out. We don't know exactly the cause of this battle, but we do know that it was the single notable one in Solomon's reign. Talking of driving people out, we're then told that there were still people left from the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, and if we were in any doubt, we're told these people were not Israelites. Now, a long time ago, Joshua brought the Israelites into this promised land, and the specific command of God was that he must drive the current inhabitants out of the promised land. They had defiled it through their demonic worship practices. It didn't belong to them anyway, it belonged to God, and he gave it then to his people as an everlasting inheritance. It was seen as a significant failure of the faith of the people of God that they didn't drive these people out completely. Well, now Solomon is living with unprecedented levels of power, and we find, much to our dismay, that he doesn't use that great power to finally fulfill God's plan in driving these wicked nations out of his land. Instead, he uses that power to force these people into working for him, doing forced labor as slaves. That is as ugly as it sounds. We know that the command concerning these people is that they should be driven out of the land. If they decided to fight, then of course they could be defeated in battle, but the priority was to cleanse the land of these truly evil people and their truly evil practices. Well, Solomon here is showing that he deviates from the plan of God when he thinks his plan is better. And that is a serious warning sign to us, isn't it? There are other little hints of that in the passage. He sets up a trading network at the end of this chapter, which goes on to increase his wealth even more, and we are reminded that the king's account gave us many more details about how exactly Solomon increased the quantity of things that he ought not to have done. He increased his stockpile of gold, he increased his military might, he increased the number of wives and women that he had relations with. Solomon, like all of us really, he is a complex character. But it's so tragic to see that with all the blessing he had, he still couldn't be fully devoted to the Lord. He still let his sin and pride and compromise rule the day. That is undeniably a fair assessment of Solomon's reign and his character. And yet, I think if Solomon heard us speaking like this about him, he might well hold the mirror back up at us and say, well, do you not see all the blessings that you've been given? Do you not see how quick you are to compromise? And he would be right, wouldn't he? I can't help but think that most people watching this video are among the very most blessed to have ever walked the planet. You're watching this on some kind of an electronic device, right? This video is streaming over the internet. That fact alone would have blown Solomon's mind. The access to information you and I have would have made Solomon's library look like a book box at a preschool. We could go through Solomon's lavish lifestyle, but we could look at modern equivalents that make his riches just pale in comparison. So yeah, while we look at Solomon in all his blessing and say what a tragedy that despite that blessing he was half-hearted and weak-willed, shouldn't he have lived his whole life flat on his face, full of gratitude for the God who had given him so much, and he would rightly say, well, shouldn't you, given that you have infinitely more? So today, may God give us the eyes to see all the many ways in which he has poured out his blessings upon us, and may he stir up within us a genuine, glad, God-honouring gratitude for the many gifts he has put within our lives. May we use what we do have to bless others and to glorify God by doing what he has called us to do and living in glad submission to him.